All right, hello everyone. Welcome into the Geek Garage podcast, the most inclusive and accessible nerd culture audio program on the interwebs. I'm your host, David, and joined with me as always is my lovely wife, Lindsay. Hello, Lindsay.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing good. Doing good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Did you have a good day?
Yeah. It was nice.
Kind of low key,
Yeah.
right? Got to have some lunch with the family and well, you had the privilege of mowing the lawn in like 1,000-degree heat, so that must have been fun, right?
Just the back, and our yard's not that big.
Yeah.
The annoying part was moving all of the stuff, like all the kids' toys out of the yard. I kept waiting, thinking that somebody would come out and help, but
No.
they didn't. So
Hey,
it's cool.
someone's got to play Mario Kart with our son.
This is true.
Apparently he can't play by himself. Well, he can. He just, we just got a second controller that works. So now he's cashing in on the ability to play multiplayer. So, yeah, that's been fun. But yeah, so enough of that shit. So today we are, as promised, if you listened to our episode last week, we kind of teased this episode that we are doing our we're continuing with our Marvelous Adventure and doing the next two movies in the timeline, sort of. There's a big old asterisk in there. It's supposed to be something else, maybe like Ant-Man and Civil War, I think. But I accidentally skipped over Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. If you listened to our previous episode, you heard this, but in case you didn't, yeah, we did that episode back when Zach was still my co-host, and it should have been Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and Volume 2 back to back. And I didn't realize that in the timeline order, they came one after another. Turns out they do. And I messed that up. So yeah, we're kind of backpedaling just a tiny bit, and we're doing Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and then Civil War. And then we should be back on track, provided that I don't, again, fuck up the the timeline order. So
I'm sure you'll be fine.
yeah.
I'm here to help you now, so.
I appreciate that. But yeah, we definitely have two amazing MCU films to talk about today. And
One more amazing than the other, I will say.
Sure. I mean, I guess if we're talking scale, as a scale that involves the most amount of characters, it does lean heavily towards one film over another. But, we do run into a character in the former film where the one of the characters turns out to be a giant planet. So,
Yeah, well, there is that.
yeah. So yeah, like I said, we're gonna be tackling those two. We're gonna get into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 right now. We don't have any Facebook polls or anything to go over. I did post something kind of funny earlier today. It was just a random thought that I had. I put up a poll asking when people listen to earbuds, do they keep one or both in, or I think another option was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then I let people fill in like their own answers if they wanted. A lot of people said that they do right ear only, which is what I do, actually. That was the majority of the votes. And then there was like one or two for like left ear. And then someone put like, I don't use earbuds. And I'm like, that's fair, because like, I don't know, people have funky ears. And like, I know you for the longest time had big issues with earbuds, right?
Yeah, I have like really small.
Yeah.
So it's hard to find a really good fit.
Yeah.
And ones that will actually stay in.
Yeah, I know a lot of people, even if the earbud package comes with multiple different sizes, like even then, like it's still...
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like the ones that you currently use, it's like I can get them to fit in my ear, but they're just a little bit too heavy. And then they because the things are almost a little bit too big, they fall out.
Yeah. But it seems like you and a lot of other people have found great luck in the official Apple earpods or AirPods, whatever they're called.
The AirPods Pro.
AirPods Pro. Oh.
Yeah.
What's the difference between the Pro and the not Pro?
The Pro ones are a little bit smaller, and they have the rubber tips on them, whereas the regular AirPod or the regular Apple iPods or whatever, they don't have the rubber tips on them.
Right. It seems like the tips is the way to go.
Yes.
Yeah, because without the tips, like it's basically just a pair of wireless old Apple earbuds or headphones that are super uncomfortable in your ears. Like I could never do those. Like I threw them away. Like I never had any use for those. So yeah, that was kind of a fun poll. I haven't checked the results here in an hour or so, but yeah, last time I looked, it was like that. And I don't know. I just threw that up just, as a silly poll. So. But yeah, so let's dive into Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. So Lindsay, do you have any initial thoughts that you'd like to discuss about the film? Likes, dislikes, overall thoughts and feelings?
I liked it. Mm-hmm. It was fun, which is what I want my superhero movies to be.
Sure.
I don't like to take them too seriously.
Makes sense.
I like some of the new characters they introduced with Mantis and Drax.
Well, Drax isn't super new.
Right, but yeah.
Yeah.
You got more of him in this.
Yeah, he definitely had a little bit more to do in this movie, it seemed like.
Yeah. And so yeah, like I enjoyed it. It was surprising in some ways because it was the first real, spoiler alert, I guess, movie where they actually killed off a semi-likable character.
Oh, yeah.
So that was kind of surprising. And
yeah, have we, up until this point, I'm sure there's been some semi-memorable deaths, right? From like either, good characters or, like chaotic neutral characters or... I don't know. I can't really think of any. I feel like there's got to be some, but maybe not.
Ultron was pretty cool. He was killed off. That's about all I can think of.
But I mean, Ultron
and if you count Jarvis.
Yeah, but I mean, he came back as Vision, so.
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you may be right. I mean, Yondu is definitely like one of the first super memorable deaths in the MCU. In terms of like good guys, it was up until like this movie, like I'd say like maybe midway through, like he wasn't considered a bad guy, but he wasn't necessarily good either. Like, he was part of the Ravagers. And so that just by default, that kind of makes him like, like kind of sleazy or not sleazy, but I don't know. What am I trying to say? I
always kind of felt like they were just kind of like they sort of had a moral compass.
Right.
Sort of.
Like
they weren't exactly out like killing babies, at least that we saw in the MCU.
Right.
They were kind of like robbing, just kind of stealing and scavenging and...
Yeah, but when they took Rocket and Groot and Yondu hostage, they got pretty turnt there. They started sending fuckers out to space without any protection, and they did not feel bad about that at all. They were they were pretty happy to say goodbye to those dudes as they floated into space and turned icicles.
This is true.
Yeah. But yeah, so the movie, it kind of opens up with a couple of characters that we're sort of kind of familiar with. Basically, it's it's Star-Lord's mom and dad, and they're on a little date, and they go behind a Dairy Queen, and we're introduced to them and a couple new ideas, and yeah, we'll see his dad come back, and he's all, goody, like, hey, I just saved your life. Why don't you come hang out with me? I'm your dad, and let's get to know each other. And then they get to know each other, and it turns out that he's not so great of a guy, and he's called Ego for a reason.
Yeah.
Like the planet that he created is basically just him and planet form.
So it's just another one of those cases of a parent using their child to, live vicariously through them, or, they need something, some sort of personal gain that they need.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very common in the MCU.
Yeah, lots of people with
fucked up parents.
Yeah, fucked up parents, mommy and daddy issues. It's a reoccurring theme, as you said. Yeah. So yeah, just a heads up, we don't have a ton of notes laid out. We weren't super prepared for this episode. We just decided to record because we found some free time, which is very hard to come by nowadays. Especially free time, and we're both like in the mental state to record, and we're like, I mean, we both have seen both of these movies a million times, so we felt like we could probably sit down and discuss.
Yeah, Civil War, yes. Guardians, not as much.
Yeah.
But, like I said, I looked up some stuff, hit the highlights, watched some scenes.
Right, yeah. I wanted to ask you this and get your opinion. Do you think that fathers and sons are more likely to get more out of this movie than anyone else?
I mean, I guess you could try and make that argument. But I mean, I still really felt for Star-Lord, like, in this movie. Like, when your parents disappoint you, that's hard. That's rough. And it doesn't really matter if it's your mom or your dad or whatever. If you have a close relationship with them, it's rough. And then he hasn't really had a relationship with his dad, and so, like, he gets to know his dad, and he's really excited, and it's got so much promise, and and then
basically thinks his dad is what's his name from Baywatch. What's
David Hasselhoff?
Yeah, David Hasselhoff. Wasn't he in Baywatch?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
And so, yeah, you really felt that, like, let down, like, when you found out his big agenda and everything. So
yeah, I have a weird relationship with this movie. Like, it is definitely not my favorite MCU movie, and I definitely prefer the first Guardians of the Galaxy over this. But, like, I feel like it's the movie is kind of made up of a bunch of little moments that make the movie great. Like, the movie as a whole, like, if you take a step back and look at, like, the whole thing, I'd give it, like, maybe
I think it's more emotional in some ways than the first one.
Yeah. For sure.
And, like, knowing that, like I said, him coming to the realization that family is not always blood. Yeah, so he has family in Yondu, he has family in his crew, and Gamora, and Rocket, and everybody, and they take on Mantis, and, like, she becomes part of their family, and
you are hideous.
So I think that's an important lesson for anybody.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's that plot, or story, whatever you want to call it, of like family isn't always blood. It's the people that you surround yourself with that that you call home, basically. But this, I think that's something that this movie does really well. Like, it was fun, like the memes after this movie came out. Like, I remember like one of my favorites was, aside from all the different iterations of Mary Poppins, y'all. Yeah. Like a cartoon, Yondu like coming down with his with his arrow, like right next to Mary Poppins with her umbrella. It just has a bubble above Yondu. It says, "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all." And Mary Poppins like, what the fuck? But aside from that, one of my favorites was the line from Yondu, like one of his last lines, which was, he may have been your father, boy, but he ain't your daddy. And like, I think I read one tweet from someone that was like, "Thank you, Yondu, for making the term daddy pure again." And I was like, that's so true, because like at the time, I remember like daddy was starting to be like a big thing, and like sexualizing like actors and TV personalities and whatnot. And I mean, that's a whole different topic and discussion in and of itself. But yeah, I thought I loved that part. But I mean, I was asking that question of if you thought that this might be a film, more that like fathers and sons could get something out of, because like I thought it might be, but I wanted to ask, like, it's something like every time that I watch it, like,
okay, like let's take The Lion King, okay? Like, I think that is like kind of a father-son movie, because the father is really trying to step up and teach his son the right things, and he's really trying to protect his son. He ends up dying, obviously super sad. But like this movie, the dad ends up kind of betraying him. So I think, no, it's not as much about fathers and sons as it is about, like I said before, finding out that family is not only blood, that family is. So I don't think it would necessarily hit home any better for like a father and son to watch it than it would anybody else. Yeah,
that makes sense. Let's see. I was looking earlier at some of the movie trivia on IMDb, and some of it was pretty interesting. Let's see. One thing that I kind of appreciated was Russell Bobbitt, who was the prop master behind the film. He had difficulty finding the cassette decks that they used in the movie. Like, obviously they weren't being made anymore, because those cassette decks were being made in like the 70s and 80s. And he even contacted Sony to see if like they had any like lying around, like that they rent out to movie studios and whatnot, and they had jack shit. So
they're like, you're on your own.
Yeah, so he had to just make them, which, I mean, that's what a prop master does. But anytime that you can rent something like that,
well, there's no sense in like reinventing the wheel. If you can just go get it, you should go get it.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I admire the dedication to the whole like cassette tape thing, and looking like he rigged up, or I mean, it's funny at this point, like, it was only Quill that was really into the music, like that was his thing, and he was kind of riding solo, and then now it's like the Guardians. And so like the movie opens up with Rocket, like he's like, "Hey, I thought we could have some tunes like while we work." And he's like, "No, I gotta agree with Drax on this one. It's hardly the most important thing here." But yeah, that was pretty funny, and like that's when we get introduced to Drax and his qualms with the flight packs or jet packs or whatever that Rocket made, and apparently he has sensitive nipples, which you know.
That's fair.
Yeah, him and Andy from The Office, they can both get together and talk about that. He has sensitive nipples also.
Yes.
Fans of The Office. So yeah, there was that. Apparently they were able to cut down on some of the makeup time for Dave Bautista and his Drax makeup. In the first film, it took nearly 3 hours to apply all the makeup and tattoos and whatnot, but they got it down to 90 minutes for this one. So looks like they, made some progress. But he did end up having to like sit in the sauna at the end of the day just to like have it all just wash off him and like sweat part of it off and just make it easier to come off in the shower, I guess, or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was interesting. I guess another part, we've kind of established, at this point that like this movie has a lot of familial ties and themes to it. Another part of that is Nebula and Gamora.
Yeah,
they're
the sisters.
Yeah, they're constant one-upsmanship and whatnot has still carried on into this film, and this is kind of where I don't know if you'd call it burying the hatchet, but they
sort of reconcile.
I mean, in terms of the beef that we've seen between these two characters at the end of the movie, they've made some significant progress.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, considering that like 20 minutes before the end of the movie, like Nebula is trying to kill Gamora with a spaceship.
That was fair, okay? That was warranted. I'm totally on Team Nebula for that one, okay?
Oh, yeah?
I think Gamora was being a bit of a bitch. I mean, she basically left her sister hanging it out to dry. I mean, Gamora could have went, hey, I'll help you win one for Dad every once in a while. We'll say you did it.
Yeah, but, living with Thanos as your dad, I can't imagine he fostered too much of a lovey-dovey familial
cooperative
kind of
spirit.
Yeah, like he literally made them fight each other, and then the loser had to lose a organic piece of themselves, which explains why Nebula is like half machine and half organic matter, and Nebula is more or less still completely human. Hence all the resentment Nebula has for.
That's why I'm Team Nebula. I think she was kind of valid in that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not arguing with you, but it's also one of those like kill or be killed kind of situations, and if that's the only life that you know, then that's another like kind of theme with these movies is like these hardened like vigilantes and trained killers like kind of learning what love is.
Yeah. That's why I feel like the Black Widow, Hawkeye characters aren't really fully fleshed out like in the movies at all.
Yeah.
It's because you really never get to see them be like, oh, okay. Like you do in some of the comics and some of the like fan fiction and stuff I read. So.
Yeah. I do know like one of the more common like complaints of this movie and like several other MCU films like going forward from here, like the argument of comedy and it being overbearing, like it seems like that's one of the main criticisms, especially of the new Thor movie. Like a lot of people, we talked about this a little bit on our last episode, but one of the biggest criticisms is like the comedy is too overbearing, like they don't need as much. Do you think that cut into the storyline for this movie at all, and or do you think that it was pretty warranted?
I think the Guardians movies are more set up to have that comedy.
Sure.
Than the previous Thor movies. And it's not like Thor had lack of comedy in his movies. He had, plenty of moments. But it just felt like this Love and Thunder movie, they were just trying to like shove it in there a little much. And I didn't dislike Love and Thunder, but I can see where people are coming from.
Sure. Yeah, I don't think the humor in this movie beats you over the head too much. I do think that there's a couple moments where they could have done without it to make the moments more poignant. Like when Star-Lord Star-Lord / Peter Quill and his dad are about to start going toe to toe. His dad like turns into David Hasselhoff for a second, and kind of like mocking him and like, this is what you wanted your dad to be like, but this is what I'm actually like. Like that part was funny, like objectively, that part was funny, but did it really need to be there? Like, I don't know, like maybe not. Like, I feel like Marvel is starting from around this time period, kind of has that track record of interjecting like poignant, serious moments with humor, so it doesn't get too serious. Maybe I'm reading too much into it and listening to too many echo chambers on the internet.
Well, I think like if you go to the source material of like comics, people like the drama and the action in their comics, but there's always been like some humorous frames and subplots in the comics as well, and I think it would be a mistake not to include that. And it also fleshes out the characters a little more and gives them a little bit, at least some of them, it gives them a little bit more of a 3D real person effect. Like if you're just serious and only battling all the time, you don't really, it's harder to care about the characters, I guess.
Yeah. And comedy mixed with emotional drama and poignant moments is something that James Gunn does really well and has continued to do very well. Like, you look at the Suicide Squad and the Peacemaker show on top of the Marvel stuff that he's done. Like it's excellent. And then aside from the whole, dad stuff, like I'm trying to think of what this movie does to kind of forward along the story, like the overall MCU story. Like at the end, it introduces us to Adam, which I believe is going to be in Volume 3. I think.
Yeah.
We'll see. But yeah, I was trying to think of other things that, like you said, they introduced Mantis, who is an adorable character. I love Mantis, and I love the Mantis Drax interactions, like all of them. Like when she's like, you don't think I'm pretty or whatever, he's like, you're hideous. But like at the end, he's like, you are beautiful on the inside. And I don't know, like he's got so many good lines in this movie. Like when she's demonstrating her powers for the first time, how she talks about how she's an empath and she can sense how people are feeling, and she verbalizes their pain and all that. And she does it to Quill. He's like, she just exposed your deepest, darkest secrets. You must be so embarrassed. Like, that's one of my favorite lines of all time. It's so funny, like the way he delivers it. But yeah. And of course, the ending scene when Yondu, makes his ultimate sacrifice and gives Quill the mask headset thing to keep him from dying in space, and so we can get safely aboard the ship. And then all the Ravengers show up and give him the Ravenger funeral that, they all said that he didn't deserve in the beginning, but, everyone learned the truth about how, he abducted Quill but as a kid, but he kept that a secret for how long? I mean,
Yeah.
like it had to be at least 20 years, 15, 20 years that he was supposed to deliver him to Ego, but when he realized that he sent him on a mission to abduct a kid, he was like, no, I can't deliver you a kid because I know exactly what you're planning on doing. And I can't remember why he had to keep that a secret from everyone else. Do you remember why he had to?
Well, I think because wasn't Ego like paying people for bringing him his offspring?
Right,
and so
yeah.
he didn't want the other Ravengers to know because...
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because they would all they would like kill Yondu to deliver them.
Yeah, they would want the reward. Yeah.
That makes total sense. Yeah, good job. High five.
I mean, I'm not guaranteeing that's why.
I'm pretty sure that's why, or if there's multiple reasons, that's got to be one of them. But yeah, like I said, all the Ravengers show up at the end, and we get all kinds of cool cameos. We get the one that comes to mind, or one of them is Sylvester Stallone. I can't remember his character, but I know it's one from the comic books. And then Ving Rhames, he was the other actor that I was thinking of that made a cameo appearance at the end. I don't know the name of his character either. Anyone that's listening that's a huge comic book nerd is probably screaming at me right now, and that's cool. Sorry, I haven't gotten a chance to read much Guardians of the Galaxy comic books yet, but I want to, because there's a run where Tony Stark apparently joins them for a little bit, which is pretty cool. So,
well, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, I did read in the trivia that Taserface, his character, he comes from a cybernetically enhanced race called the Starks, and it's no accident. They are coincidence. I can't remember the name of their planet, but some of Stark's equipment somehow crash landed on their planet, which maybe it helped them become enhanced or something. And so their god is literally Tony Stark.
Interesting.
I don't know if they know he's just a dude, like from Earth, but yeah, that was a funny little factoid in the trivia. So, anyways, we got to get to Captain America: Civil War because that is a huge film to discuss. So, Lindsay, what kind of letter grade or star rating would you give Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2? B minus?
Maybe a B minus. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair. I think B minus is probably where I'd land. I think B plus is what I gave Guardians Volume 1. So, like I said, Guardians Volume 1 is definitely my favorite of the two that we've gotten so far. I'm very anxious to see where they go with Volume 3, which we should be getting. I think it's next year, right? Like, I believe we have the Christmas special is supposed to come out this Christmas, and then we'll get the next movie next year, which is a pretty significant gap. Like, this Volume 2 came out in 2017, and then if it's 2023, that's what, 6 years?
Yeah, but I mean, like, we had a pandemic and stuff. So
I know,
that pretty much shut everything down for like 2 years.
Sure, but still, like, it's a pretty decent gap between two movies. I mean, it was only 3 years between Volume 1 and 2. But anyways, yeah, so Captain America Civil War, this is a doozy. It's basically Avengers like 2.5, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
I mean, it's really only lacking Hulk and
Thor,
yeah. And we get a couple of new characters. We get Spidey, yay!
Yay!
And we get Black Panther, yay!
And Ant-Man.
And well, I mean,
we were introduced to Ant-Man in like his solo movie, but like he didn't get to hang out with the Avengers too much.
This is true. Yeah. So yeah, we get these awesome new characters, and I got to learn some new stuff when I was reading the trivia a while ago, which I didn't really know. It's kind of like it's just bureaucratic shit, but it's still interesting. Like it's so I think they were like writing the script or something, and they were trying to get permission from Sony to use Spider-Man. You know, there was this big thing for a long time where Sony did not want to play ball with Disney once Disney acquired, Marvel and the MCU and all that. And so they weren't sure if they were even going to get Spider-Man while they were writing the script for this. So they ended up cutting Spider-Man's part way down so that if they had to cut it out completely, it wouldn't affect the story too much. Well, and then they jacked up the role for Black Panther a lot. So that's why we get a lot of Black Panther in this movie. But then, like, nearing the completion of the script or at the end of the script, like, Sony came back saying, like, with a deal, like, we'll let you use Spider-Man, for however much you want to use him, but I forget it in exchange what they asked for. But yeah, Fox basically Sony came back, letting them,
right.
So they ended up giving Spider-Man quite a bit of time as well. Not nearly as much as Black Panther, but yeah. So what did you think of Civil War? Did you like it?
Yeah, just a little bit. Yeah, it was pretty awesome. A lot of Black Widow, which I always appreciate. Mm-hmm. Like I said, I felt like it kind of fleshed out some of these characters a little more. It fleshed out Tony and Pepper's relationship a little bit more. I was kind of excited to see her putting her foot down a little bit, saying, I'm not putting up with your bullshit. So she took a little bit of a break from Tony, hoping that he was going to get his stuff together. Of course, that's part of what pushed him to want to have some sanctions in place, I guess.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and all that just from some dialogue from Tony. Like, Pepper doesn't even make an appearance in this movie. No. So, yeah, we get all that just from some dialogue from Tony.
Yeah.
Yeah, what else?
And like I said, between Cap and Tony, like, we kind of get their feelings on things, on the state of things. And I really think that Tony was kind of onto something. Because I don't think really Tony was like, hey, let's be restricted by the government. I think he was like, hey, let's pretend to play ball with these assholes so we can keep the team together. And Cap was like, no. Yeah. You could be onto something there. It definitely seemed like Tony would kind of be the one who would play ball, like, at the beginning, and then... Well, I mean, like, if like another country or someone like really needed help and whoever's in charge said, no, you can't go, do you really think Tony's going to stay home and not help?
Right. And do you think that, like, Tony would, like, hand over the reins without putting some, like, backdoor into, like...
Yeah.
What is it? Friday? Like,
yeah.
So yeah,
and he'd have his lawyers write so much bullshit in there. They'd be screwed.
Yeah,
it'd be United States of Tony Stark by the time he was done.
Probably, yeah. But yeah, this movie it covers a lot. We're introduced to Baron Zemo, which is a very interesting villain. Up until this point in the MCU, like, we've been introduced to a lot of villains that are very powerful, either magically or by brute force. They're just very powerful, strong villains. And Zemo is maybe one of the first villains that we've come across in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that uses brains over brawn, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting because like we have no prior knowledge of him, and so like on top of everything in this movie, they managed to weave his character into it, and it makes total sense. Like, his family was unfortunately killed during the battle at Sokovia.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes total sense. Like his
reasoning.
Yeah, his reasoning behind wanting to break up the band.
Yeah, have some revenge.
Right. I don't know, what is there something in particular or a couple facets of this movie that stood out to you as like this is the reason why I think this is a good Marvel movie, or this is why I really like it?
Well, like I said, fleshing out the characters a little more. It wasn't all 100% just action, though there was plenty of that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of humorous moments in there,
Mm-hmm.
which I enjoy. And it wasn't too over the top with like the humor.
Yeah, that's that's a big one. Like we were talking a little bit about that.
Yeah, in Guardians.
For Guardians. And
yeah, like, I enjoy, like, the fighting and the one-liners, and so since we had so many Avengers fighting each other, we had a lot of that.
Yeah, they did a great job of balancing the humor in this movie. Like, one of my favorite lines to break up, like, the tension is, like, when Tony gets the info from, what was it, Falcon, when he visits him and everyone else on the raft, as to where Cap and Bucky are headed. And so he gets there and he opens the elevator, and like Steve is like, "It's good to see you, Tony." And Bucky like still is like pointing his AR at him, and I don't know if it's an AR, doesn't matter. But he's like, "Come on, Manchurian Candidate, you're killing me." Like, I come in peace. And then of course, like, that peace doesn't last very long. But yeah, like opening this movie with Bucky killing his parents, but like the uninformed, which is me, and for you as well, I'm assuming. Did you know that going in that was his parents?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the car and like, they called him Stark Howard. So even seeing this movie for the first time, you knew that in the very beginning of the movie that was his parents? Yes. Okay.
Well, I did not pick up on that. I don't know, maybe I need to read more fan fiction.
Probably, yeah.
But yeah, that was lost on me. So that was a fun reveal for me, I guess, at the end. But yeah, so this movie, like I said, it was a big deal when it came out, because like we've had plenty of Avengers bickering in Avengers 1 and Avengers Age of Ultron, but like here it's turned up to 11 and the proverbial knob is ripped off.
Well, the stakes are higher,
right?
Because some of the Avengers are literally being threatened. Like, if you don't sign, you're literally enemy of the state, not welcome here. Yeah, so they're literally deciding if they're going to be on the run or if they're going to sign it and, stick around, I guess.
Right.
And I guess, some of them felt like they just couldn't sign it over.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I feel like that was a mistake, because I really don't think that Tony was saying, hey, let these guys be in charge. I think he was saying, let's do what we have to keep, like I said, keep the team together.
Sure.
So, yeah. So it's definitely a interesting movie. One of my favorite parts was in the airport scene when they're having the big battle is Nat and Clint fighting.
It's so good. You're pulling your punch. Or no, that was Scarlett's line.
Yeah. He's just like, how hard are you going to hit me?
He's like, are we still friends?
Yeah,
It depends on how hard you hit me. I love that so much. Like, it's almost like they're just putting on a show. They're like they both understand that this is just a phase, and because like they're hardened like war bots. They've seen plenty of action in war, and they know that like there's ebbs and flows, and people come to solutions eventually.
Well, I mean, you know, it's like one of Natasha's lines, I think, in Avengers when she's talking to Loki. She's always like, you know, I'm Russian, you know, her genes, you know, rise and fall every day. She's like, I'm really not attached.
Yeah, exactly. So. But yeah, that is another great moment in this movie where they're just kind of like, they're play fighting almost.
Yeah, and like eventually Natasha turns and allows them to get away. Right,
yeah. Which was a big deal, and the exact action that led to her finally her own solo film, which we'll get to, I think, next one, right? Like, because her like the events of Black Widow happen right after this.
Yeah. So
I think that's one of the next. I can't remember what the other one is, but I'm pretty sure Black Widow is one of the next two.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Like I was saying, we had a couple of brand new characters introduced. So why don't we talk about those for a second?
Okay. So obviously I loved Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really glad that we didn't have to sit through a whole another Spider-Man gets bit by the spider movie,
and then Uncle Ben dies.
Yeah, and in order to get Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like we really needed that.
No, we did not. Even people that have not seen the movies, any of the Spider-Man movies, know what the fuck is going on with Spider-Man. Everyone knows that he was bit by a radioactive spider. Everyone knows that Uncle Ben died somehow, some way. Doesn't really matter, but Uncle Ben's dead, and his parents are dead, and he only has his Aunt May.
Right.
And depending on which universe you're referencing, he may not even have Aunt May. So, but yeah, we do get Spider-Man in this movie, which was a huge deal for stupid bureaucratic reasons. One of my favorite moments is when Tony comes to see him, and he sits down on the bed, or he's trying to sit down on the bed, and he's like, "Now it's your turn to move." And like he scoots down, or Peter scoots down on the bed. Apparently, like that wasn't scripted. Like he just, Tom Holland forgot his blocking.
I think Tony says, "I'm gonna sit here now," or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like, I'm gonna sit here now, and like he thought that would be a funny line to say, so to not have to stop filming, and it just made it into the final cut, which I thought was great. And then when he shoots his hand, when he's about to go, like, you know, spill the beans to Aunt May, he's like, "Don't tell my aunt." And he's like, "Get me out of this." So that was great. It's funny, like, if you listen closely, you can hear his British accent start to slip in a couple of places. I don't know for sure, but this was probably one of his very first American roles as a British actor. So
yeah.
But yeah, I love the story of him,
looking
screen
up to
testing,
Tony.
or, well, I was going to say screen testing and auditioning for this role. Like he talks about, like, talking to like the Russo brothers and Kevin and all them, like, "Hey, do you want me to, like, actually flip in?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, kid, like, whatever you want." And like, they had no idea what he was talking about. But, like, he actually does a fucking front flip, like, legit gymnastic style. And, like, to catch, you know, and pantomimes catching Cap's shield. And everyone on set is just like, "We've never seen anyone do any actual movements in these movies." And that was apparently the moment they were like, "Okay, kid, you have the part. Like, here it is. Good job."
Yeah.
Someone finally who can do their own stunts. And I mean, I'm not like, shitting on anyone like, what's it, Chris Evans. Like, he had to get in fantastic shape, like, because we have that, of course, the notorious epic scene where he's doing a bicep curl with a fucking with Bucky's helicopter.
Yeah.
Which I was reading in the trivia that they had to film all of his scenes where he was not in costume first, because he was in the best shape, of course, at the beginning of filming, and you lose so much weight wearing the suit because it's it's a legit suit. It's not like a green screen type thing, and so they had to film all those regular clothes scenes first so they could get all the muscle definition and whatnot. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So yeah, that's Spider-Man, and then we get some funny scenes with him at the airplane at the airport and the hangar and whatnot.
Under ruse.
Yeah, and him stopping Bucky's punch, just like, whoa, is that a metal arm?
Yeah.
That was a big deal at that moment because him demonstrating that kind of power to stop
and strength.
Yeah.
And he was just one step away for asking for autographs.
Yes. Yeah, that's always been kind of like the allure and likableness of Spider-Man is that, he's a superhero, but at the end of the day, he's just a kid, and he's surrounded by all these people that he watches on TV.
Yeah.
And so,
well, that's why I liked Miss Marvel so much, because she was an actual fan of all the superheroes, before she kind of came into her own powers. So
yeah.
It just made her very relatable and kind of likable. It's oh, here's this kid, and she's daydreaming about, being a superhero.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Miss Marvel, I finally finished it, and I was a sobbing mess at the end. Her dad should win Dad of the Year in that universe and in all the universes. Their conversation out on the outside her bedroom on the roof, it's just, I was like, oh God.
See, that was much more of an actual moment
mm-hmm. Yeah.
than I think happened in Guardians. So.
Yeah, for sure. So we got Spider-Man, and then our other new character is, of course, Black Panther, which had a little bit bigger role, more cemented into the actual plot of the movie, because his dad dies from the explosion, and the news reports kind of jumped the gun and assumed that it was Bucky Barnes, who was an enemy of the States also.
Well, I mean, that was the plan. That was Zemo's plan, was to flesh him out.
Yeah.
It's really hard to hide when the entire world is looking for you.
Yeah. Apparently, the chase on the highway and under the underpass, apparently that was all practical effects. Him, Bucky, commandeering someone's motorcycle. That was all practical. I couldn't believe that. I was surely there had to have been some CG, and I'm sure the cars were rolling at 5 miles an hour, and then they used some camera trickery to make it look like they were running 40 miles an hour. But yeah, I thought that was a fantastic scene, and and then after they, all the 5-0 come, it's revealed that this new guy in the cat suit is Your Highness.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously, Chadwick Boseman, amazing actor. He was made for this role, and
yeah.
It's very sad that he's not here anymore.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see what they do in Black Panther 2, which looks fucking incredible.
It looks really amazing. I'm really have my fingers crossed for Shuri, but
yeah,
I don't know. Based on the the scenes that we've got so far, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
So.
the trailer, like, it shows a lot, but at the same time, it doesn't really tell us a lot.
Yeah, and Marvel is famous for its
Misdirection and
trickery, and
yeah.
so who knows?
Yeah, well, we'll see, but yeah, like I said, Black Panther, he's cemented more into this the story arc of this film. You know, he's got his own motivations for kind of quote unquote joining Tony's side and then going after Bucky, but it turns out, like, he learns that it wasn't Bucky after all, it was Baron Zemo. And then, you know, he makes, like, the big decision towards the end of the movie. He makes that decision to not kill Zemo, you know, to turn him over to the authorities, which is a big deal, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't know what else. What else can we talk about with this movie? Vision is a relatively big part of this movie, right? I mean, it's really the first, like, full movie that we get of Vision, you know, and he's got a couple funny parts where he floats through the walls of Wanda's room.
Yeah. Yeah, he's an interesting character, and
he's trying to make the pepper cash to make her feel better.
And he is not, like, really fleshed out as far as, like, what he can do. So he's a very interesting character, and he's still not really.
Yeah, they played that really close to the vest, as far as his powers, and they, which ended up being a good thing. They just kind of let time tell, because in reality, he didn't know. Like, he admits, like, he's not sure what he's capable of, what the Soul Stone is capable of. So, yeah, they just kind of let all that play out in real time. His full capabilities and powers and whatnot. I love that line where he's like, "Wanda, no one dislikes you, Wanda." He's like, "Thank you." But yeah, and then we get the pretty humorous scene between the three, him, Wanda, and Clint, when he comes to try and rescue her from the compound.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we get a good demonstration of Wanda's powers. Like, you know, up until this point, we haven't seen a ton. Like, we've seen a little bit.
Of her, like, kind of influencing and...
Right, but she pounds him into the ground, several stories into the ground. Well, like, with her powers, and that's just, you know, a drop in the bucket to what we'll, you know, start seeing with her. I mean, we get a good idea of what she's capable of in WandaVision, and then, of course, in Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
We get basically the full regalia there. But what else can we talk about with this movie?
Nothing. I mean, really, it was really awesome. It ended in kind of a bummer because we have so much of our team kind of on the run. Mm-hmm. But it does make Infinity War kind of important, because that's really what brings everybody back together. And it's kind of like, okay, this is a problem, this is real, and, you know, we don't have time for any bullshit.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's for sure.
And the fact that everyone kind of sucked it up and got along and did what they needed to do proves that they could have, and that this big gap and this, you know, wasn't really necessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like how it was Cap that extended the olive branch at the end. I mean, if that's what you want to call it, an olive branch. But, to Tony, like you see Tony in the brand new Avengers compound, and he opens up that package, and it's like a burner phone, right? With just Cap's number in it in case he needs to get in touch with him.
Yeah, I think so.
And he has that note where he's like, I can't remember exactly what he said. He's like, hey, yeah, we're fighting right now, but I think at the end of the day, we're still on the same side of things. And if you ever need me, I'm just a call away. And I thought that was very characteristic of Cap to do that. Like, I'm not saying Tony would never do that, because I think he would.
I think he would. I think Tony kind of has a little bit more of an ego, and takes him a little longer to like say sorry, and that's why like he took like Bucky being responsible for his parents' death so hard. Like once he had time to kind of like absorb it and was like, okay, well, he really wasn't himself.
Yeah,
and I really can't hold this against him. He it's not like he got over it exactly, but he was like, I can live with this, and I understand that, it wasn't really a choice on his part.
Right.
So, but, the fact that Cap didn't tell him, and then, all this stuff with the Accords and everything are being sprung on him all at once, it made it hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of like him knowing and not telling him, and even first he said like, I knew parts of it, and he's like, did you know? He's like, yeah, like I knew the whole thing, and that was kind of like the proverbial nail in the coffin was him admitting that he knew all along. And I can see both sides of the argument that Cap made, was like where he was like, I thought I was, protecting you, or, sparing you heartache and mixed feelings by not telling you that this is what happened to your parents. But I can also see like being Tony, like, and needing closure, like how knowing what would happen or what happens would help. But, from Cap's side, like, it was his best friend that did it, but really only Cap knew that Bucky was not in his right mind. Literally, like, that's not Bucky, that's the Winter Soldier making those decisions. So yeah, I think we've given this one its due. You want to throw out a letter grade, or so?
Well, in that case, it's A-.
A-?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to give this one a solid A. Yeah, I think the A pluses I'm going to reserve for later films. But yeah, this one I thoroughly enjoyed. I don't know. This isn't necessarily the movie's fault. I can understand it being kind of expensive to rent out an actual airport, but it does kind of take me out of the movie during the airport scene, like when they're all talking. Like, the action is a little bit different, like when the action kicks in the airport scene, it's a little different. But when they're just standing around talking, like, it's so obvious with like a good TV. Like, everyone has a good TV nowadays. We have a really good TV. And it's so obvious that they're shooting on a soundstage, like in front of a big green screen or blue screen, whatever. And so it probably doesn't do anything for you, but for me, it takes me out of the movie just a tiny bit, knowing that they are not on location. Like, I'm a sucker for on location shooting or partially on location shooting. And knowing that, like, they're just standing around on a soundstage, like, saying these lines, it takes me out of the movie just a tiny bit. But since it's a superhero movie, I'm willing to suspend some disbelief and, for the sake of getting past all that. So, actually, I think isn't Black Panther next? Black Panther and Black Widow.
Actually, I think it's so after Civil War is Doctor Strange. Scratch that. It's Black Widow and Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I could have sworn that. Are you sure you're reading from the timeline order?
Timeline order, yes.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I'm not complaining about that. I knew that, at the beginning of Black Panther, they're talking about how he just inherited the title of King of Wakanda.
Right. So Black Panther is immediately after Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Okay. So yeah, we'll have that next to the. We'll have that 2 episodes later.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Well. Yeah. Should we get into our shit that doesn't suck and then sign off this bitch?
You can. I don't have any.
You don't have anything?
No. I really haven't had a chance to delve into any new podcast or anything lately.
No, but I mean, we were at lunch today. You were talking about the documentaries and stuff that you've been watching lately. Talk about some of that.
I've been watching the Chernobyl, the actual news footage on HBO.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. I just find interesting.
It is. I mean, it's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's the actual news footage from the 80s. I really find all the hairstyles and the clothes really humorous. And
right, because it's not just style from the 80s, but it's Russian style from the 80s.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some of it's American news footage as well.
Sure. Yeah.
But mostly it's just a reflection on how long it took us to get the actual events of what happened.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because they did not want anyone to know anything.
Right, and eventually they had to tell because the radiation was leaking so far, and they were like, oh, shit.
Yeah, they're like, oh, yeah, well, fish, 200 miles from here are going to start growing multiple eyeballs. So we're going to have to let people know finally.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, I have been watching a lot of the pitch meetings online. I find them really humorous.
Yeah. Oh,
and
yeah.
Ryan George.
Yeah, those are always funny.
Other than that, we've been kind of wrapped up in the kids lately.
Yeah.
I don't know if David's ever mentioned, but both our kids have autism.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before.
Okay.
I mean, so it's been a while. I don't talk about them a ton on the podcast, but.
So yeah, they're always a bit of an adventure, and
we just recently decided that we're gonna homeschool them. So that's the thing, and so we're kind of prepping for that. So
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I don't know if this is gonna be the best thing, if this is gonna work, but I'm really anxious to try it, and I hope it does. I hope I can provide them with a really good and thorough education, and that I can feel good about it, because I don't feel good about the school system right now.
Yeah, it's I mean, there's that's a whole other bag to unpack. I don't know, maybe if we find time to start an autism awareness podcast separate from this podcast.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
Probably not, because that requires time.
Shit that doesn't suck.
So yeah, my shit that doesn't suck this week. I recently rewatched Midnight Mass on Netflix just because I don't know why. I really enjoyed it the first time and wanted to watch it. What? You got something else? Did you think of something else that
I can save it for next time?
It's okay. Go ahead.
Nothing. I forgot about that show Evil on Paramount, and I have been catching up on it.
Oh yeah, the one with Luke Cage.
Yes.
The guy from Luke Cage.
Yes,
yeah.
and
I don't know his name.
The demons, and yeah.
Did a new season come out? Or okay,
yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, I know you like that show.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up and kind of scary in some parts. Granted, I'm a bit of a chicken, but
yeah. Is Ben from Lost still in it? Yeah, he was
Yeah.
kind of a creeper when I was watching it.
oh yeah, he's demon.
Yeah, it looked like it.
Yeah.
He plays that part really well, like the
He does.
sleazy guy. Like he plays
The
that.
I know what's going on and you don't, and I'm not gonna tell you.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen him in a role that wasn't like that slimy, sleazy guy. That's but yeah, that's cool. I'm glad that they're still doing that show.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like I said, I watched Midnight Mass again.
The Catholic Church is really messed up. Like, it's so weird, guys. It's so weird.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure how I went to Catholic Church for so long. And I mean, when you're indoctrinated at an early age, it's a thing. Like, you just go to church and you're like, okay, you sit in mass for an hour and 15 minutes and you take communion and then you go home. And that's that. But, yeah, at one point in time, in high school, I was like, I just kind of looked around and I was like, this shit's kind of weird. But yeah, Midnight Mass, I can't recommend that show enough. It's fantastic. If you are Catholic, former Catholic, if you're Christian at all, if you're
Or into vampires.
yeah, or into vampires, because it is a like a demon on the verge, or a fringe Christian show masquerading as a vampire show.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's that. And then I've also been getting back into books or audiobooks more specifically here lately. Audiobooks are the only way I can do books nowadays. Like I don't have time to just sit down and read. So, but I have plenty of chores to do and I can multitask while I do chores. So I've been doing audiobooks. I've been stealing Lindsay's Audible credits. Sorry, Lindsay, but I told you I was going to buy you some more. So
Yeah.
I read or listened to Stephen King's It. I've been trying to listen to more of Stephen King, because he's the GOAT, and I love the It movies that came out recently by Andy Muschietti, and so I wanted to finally read the book, and that was a chore. It was I think it was like 44 and a half hours total, but I knocked that out in I think about 2.5 weeks or so, and it was a very rewarding read. And then I just finished Gerald's Game, which was significantly shorter. I think that was only about 12 hours. Since I read some classic Stephen King, I wanted to shoot for something a little bit more contemporary, so that's why I went with Gerald's Game, and that was really good as well. I really enjoyed the movie that came out a couple of years ago, so I wanted to see how the book was in comparison to the movie, and I was not disappointed. So definitely looking forward to reading more of his stuff. So but yeah, that's I think that's going to do it for the podcast, this episode of the podcast. If you haven't subscribed already, please do so on Apple Podcasts, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you consume your media. Leave us a rating and review. That helps us out tremendously to be discovered by other listeners looking for nerdy and geeky podcasts. If you're looking to help us out financially, we have a Patreon that you can subscribe to. The tiers are only like $2 and $5 a month, and you get some pretty cool perks. You get invited to our private chat where we discuss upcoming episodes, and you get to even suggest episode topics to discuss in the future. So yeah, it's a good time. Yeah, that's gonna be it for this episode. As always, be kind, stay geeky, and eat lots of cheesecake. Bye.
Bye.